Hello, and welcome to Makers.dev, episode number 129. Chris, I don't know if you remember a super long time ago when I would just ask LLMs for fun facts about the episode
Sure.
numbers, and they were like terrible fun facts, and they were made up and stuff. I did the same thing before this episode, and I got, what, 12 fun facts about this? Only like four of which were actually interesting, so I'll highlight those. But like I fact checked them, and they're all really good. So the first one I thought was interesting was 129 is a semi-prime number. Do you know what a semi-prime number is? I did not know this.
I do not.
It's the product of two prime numbers.
Ah, nice.
It's the product of 3 and 43. You get 129. The second fun fact that I thought was actually fun is that in binary, 129 is 100000001, which makes it, I would say, palindromic, but apparently you can also say symmetric, that it's symmetric around the middle.
All
So I
right.
thought that was cool. And then it's also a rep digit in base 6. It's 333 in base 6. And then it goes on. There's historical 80, 129 Emperor Hadrian started construction of the Pantheon. Not as interesting to me.
Sure.
But yeah, my goodness, AI, how far it's come since the days when it would give us not interesting and false facts
Yeah.
about the numbers.
I was going to say, I don't think actually I knew you were using LLMs to generate those facts before. And so we had some false ones before. And I guess that's the reason why. I don't think you ever told me that.
The ones there were a few episodes where I said specifically like I'm using LLMs to
Okay.
find this out, and like this is what the LLM said, and those were wrong. Did we have ones? I used them for brainstorming a few times, but I think otherwise it's been.
I
they've been
feel
true
like
facts.
sometimes they were dubious.
Fair enough.
I don't know.
I'll have a prize for any listener who can go back and tell me the obviously intentional Easter egg of the facts that
Yes,
I have
of
said
course.
that are wrong. It's been a little bit, but not nearly as long as the gap between the last episode and the one before. What's up? I have a lot to talk about, but I'd like to.
Yeah,
I'd like to.
I think this is going to be mostly about you. But let's see, what do I have? My mic apparently stopped working between last time and this time, so you get me on my headphones.
And you get me in the good mic. My audio quality last time, I hate it. I was listening to some of it, and that
Yeah,
I'd like to not do that again.
I'm afraid that's what this is going to be. We'll see.
I think you sound much better than I sounded last time.
Okay.
I was just like on my MacBook microphone, but
Yeah.
yeah I think you sound good.
Yeah, we'll see. What else? I finished my master's. That is done.
Congratulations!
Thanks.
Incredible.
Yeah.
What a journey.
Yeah, the last two classes I was done 2 classes ago, so it was a struggle to get through the last two, but I got through. I got through with all A's and one B, so I'll take it.
What was the one B?
It was in reinforcement learning, which was a very math-heavy, proof-heavy class, and I took it in a semester where I was doing other things, and I should have realized I needed to spend more time on that class. So proofs and math are my weak point, so I'll take it. I did what I needed to do to get a B, and yeah.
You're a master now.
Sure.
What's the actual degree?
It's just computer science.
Okay.
But it was like you can, especially in the UT program, you can skew it a lot towards AI. So I did like 8 out of 10 classes or something were very AI focused. So
do they have is it a specialization in AI or just
no,
you have masters in
although
computer science?
2 years after I started, they launched their masters in AI. So they actually have a master's in AI you can take now, which I think a master's in CS, like people understand better. So like I would still push people to do the CS masters. You can take almost all the same classes, but yeah.
Makes sense. Well, congratulations! Incredible. What a journey. What do you do now that you have?
Yeah, it's a good question. I may be able to switch roles to be more AI focused. So that might happen in the future. The stuff I'm doing on photos is still interesting, but I sort of have done what I've came to do, or done what the role required, and so I may be switching roles in the future. We'll see.
Gotcha. Google is one of the top. I don't know how many there are now, 4 or 5 players in AI. That'd be a very exciting place to be working.
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
Cool. I'm excited for you. Anything else to talk about? Oh, you in a Kaggle competition. How's that going?
Oh, sure. I'm in a Kaggle competition. If you hear a GPU whizzing in the background, that is, or whirring in the background, that is, yeah, I'm in a Kaggle competition. We're at the bottom of the gold range right now. I'm in a team with one other person. We're doing pretty well, but hopefully we'll finish up in the gold range. It's actually fairly interesting. So, well, to me, so it's the Santa competition, which every year Kaggle does an optimization competition instead of like a deep learning competition. So optimization is like traveling salesman is the classic example.
Mm.
So say you have 100 cities and you have to figure out the shortest distance between them. You have like 100 factorial different like options. This year, it is trying to minimize the perplexity of an LLM based on an input string. And so the perplexity is like how confident the LLM is that it got the next word correct.
Mm.
You can think of it like that. And so they give you like 100 words, and you have to rearrange them for the perplexity to go down on the Gemma 9B model.
Mm.
The real trick with this is it's like the traveling salesman problem with 100 cities, but every time you move a city, it changes the weights on all the other cities.
Mm.
And so it's like traveling salesman on steroids. It is very hard, and we're doing pretty well. So
NP hard, I think is the technical.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
to fully do it, it would take 100 factorial permutations. So.
Right. If you're just brute forcing it. So how do you not brute force that? Are you training an algorithm to just know what the correct order is? What that sounds.
So you can so you can, and I have. The trouble with that is like the best order is probably surprising, quote surprising to any algorithm you train. So that's hard. Yeah, I mean, at a basic level, think about a string, and then if you switch two words, if the number goes down, then you keep that switch, or else you try to switch other words, or you move other words,
Yeah.
or
Okay.
so that is a basic algorithm that works pretty well.
Sure, because the sentence could be closer to. Okay, so I suppose it's the same sort of problem of gradient descent of like you can find yourself at local maximas if it's the wrong order, but perhaps you like randomly sample, shuffle it a few times, find the highest one from there, and then try to improve that one by shuffling
Exactly.
words around. Okay.
Yep.
Oh well,
So that is one way to do it. We'll see. It ends at the end of the month. So
cool.
Yeah.
And you're just doing this now for fun because you're already a grandmaster on Kaggle, and Correct. You can't win any money because you work at Google. So,
yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep. Yeah. It is. Yeah, it's something I do for fun now.
If you get first place, then, and there is prize money, does the fourth place person get the money?
It just shifts down. Yeah, that has happened. So I've won prize money twice when I couldn't win prize money, and it just shifts. They just shift the prize money down. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds fair. Well, that's fun.
Yeah,
I love that you're just doing this for fun. Also, that like what evidence that you just intrinsically enjoy doing. That's
I don't know if I mean, it is joy, but it's more like an obsession. Like I don't know why, but like I see number and I got to make number go down.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's a ADHD tendency, I think, of just like
perhaps
get hyperfixated on like this thing I can optimize for.
Yeah.
It was so funny that we just got back from Cancun. It was this whole family trip with my parents and all my siblings, and there was this moment where my dad was trying to bake French fries in a toaster.
Okay.
And he was just so it was this little mini game that he had of like, how many French fries can I cook at once? And it didn't like, we had other food and like it didn't matter. But it was
Did you not have an oven or like a
was there an oven? I don't think there was an oven. I think the toaster was like the way to do it.
All right.
And so he was like trying out all these different pans and these different configurations of fries. It was like so like it's difficult for me, I think, to notice when I am doing that, but it felt so transparent to me watching him do that of, oh, you're caught in a bunch of different names for like a nerd trap of you've latched onto this problem of this number can be optimized of how many French fries can I cook at once. And so me and my siblings were all just kind of chuckling at the situation. I wanted to ask you one more thing, and then we'll get into the juicy stuff. which was the computer that NVIDIA launched for $3,000.
Oh yeah.
Not 1 month ago, I posted something on Twitter where someone had posted something about this Mac Mini setup where they had this tower of Mac Minis and they could use it to run local LLMs. And I had replied to that saying, if there was a way to do this, to just order something for, I don't know, $3,000, then I would totally do it. I would buy this and want to run LLMs locally. And not 1 month later, NVIDIA announces this magical box where it's the metrics of how powerful it are. They like made up their own metrics, so it's not petaflops or whatever the standard metric is or hertz. They came up with their own thing. But my understanding of it is you can now run like the biggest open source model, the Llama, whatever, 40 billion parameters, or I don't know how many there are now. And then have a local LLM running. And I could see that being extremely useful for a lot of things. What's your hot take on this machine?
Yeah, so this is basically their answer to Apple's unified memory. So in the new Apple computers, the M4, maybe the M3, they had unified memory, which means the CPU and GPU RAM are the same. So previously you had to have CPU RAM and then GPU RAM, and you could only fit the largest model you could on the GPU RAM. But now if it's both the same thing, then you can have a really huge model. So this is their Blackwell chip. That's what they call it. And it has unified memory. I think it's super cool. So it means you don't have to, my dog's going crazy. Hopefully you can't hear that. I don't know what's going on. Sorry. So this is the Blackwell chip, and it can use all of the essentially RAM of the computer to do GPU stuff, which is awesome. I have recently been looking at buying a new MacBook. I have the old Intel, the last Intel MacBook Pro, and it's starting to really slow down. And so, like, do I buy the new M4 128 gig, RAM, like, monster, or do I buy like a MacBook Air and then this Blackwell computer, which can now like use all the NVIDIA like goodness? So I think it's super interesting. I've delayed my MacBook purchase to basically see what comes out, and we'll see.
I'm so excited for you going from Intel to the M series chips, because
I know it's a huge difference. Like the Intel computer, it works fine most of the time, but it struggles on some things. For example, plugging in a second monitor makes the fan spin up, and that drives me absolutely bonkers. It works fine a lot of the times, and sometimes it's just the CPU goes to 100% for no reason. So
there were so many little tiny interactions of just like switching windows or opening applications where I wasn't noticing the friction because I had just gotten used to it. But you notice when it instantly happens. that was amazing. Yeah, and even going to a MacBook Air, like I'm sure if you looked at benchmarks of the MacBook Airs compared to the oldest Intel, especially if it's, what are they on now? M4 is the latest. It's going to blow it out of the water, and the incremental difference of like the Air versus the Pro, I don't think it's going to matter.
It does better on almost everything. So what I didn't realize, I thought Air only had 13 inches. Now it's a 15-inch Air, which is big enough. Like, I don't like the 13-inch, but 15 inches is fine. I don't know if it will work like without lag to screen record and video record at the same time with all my applications open. So one of my friends suggested that I just like try it. Like, you have a 30-day return policy or something. So like, just try it, and it's the difference between the Air and the Pro that I would buy is like $3,000. So it's like you could buy the Air and the Blackwell NVIDIA computer, and that's probably a better choice. So we'll see.
I'd say so. Yeah, because I don't know that you'll. Wow, there's like the argument. I don't know. I could go both ways.
Yeah, it's like I do sometimes. I use Photoshop really heavily, or I use like the video editing software very heavily. And that may lag on the Air, so that might be annoying. But like that's like 2% of the time, So it's like, how much do you? And the Air is smaller, so like travel is better.
Yeah, a little lighter. I would do the Air and the Blackwell. I think that's the way to go.
I think so too. I should just buy all three, and then and then I have everything.
Perfect.
Yeah,
I'm excited for it. Just like I would love to have. I have so many different directions I could approach the thought from. Something I've noticed in computing is this accordion shifting from centralized to decentralized, and we haven't experienced that yet for LLMs. We haven't, like, LLMs right now are centralized, so you have to log into the server and it repeats stuff back to you. And you're dependent on network connections. And so the obvious place where that's going to go is then be decentralized. Everyone has their own computer that can run those LLM models locally. And then we'll probably have another push of centralized again, because, oh my gosh, they can use quantum computers now, and you're not going to have a quantum computer in your home. And I just think it'd be exciting to be on the cutting edge of that. I'm not even sure the things I would do with it. Like, I'm not really, I'm not worried about my internet going down, but I could imagine if all of a sudden LLMs publicly get really bad at changing code, but I have the snapshot of the weights of the model from when it was good in Llama, then I could do that. But yeah, I think I might need to wait for a moment when that makes sense. But then if I'm waiting for the industry to do that, then when I'm trying to get the Blackwell, then I'm not going to be able to get it. But I'm excited about it. It'd be a fun toy to play with.
Yeah, that I feel the same here. So that's the same reason I might buy the 128 gig MacBook Pro. It's like, what if you had an LLM that's always on, always listening, and I don't really want that all going to the cloud, but I could make it happen on my own computer. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know.
As a self-hosted Google Home, I think that's a compelling argument, because now you're not sending out you're not dependent on an internet connection to then tell Google or Alexa to turn on and off your lights, and then also you're not it's not listening to you all the time.
Yeah, I have 0 smart appliances and lights in my house, so that doesn't matter to me. But yeah.
There's a joke I saw of the difference between a tech enthusiast and someone who works in tech. They say a tech enthusiast has like smart everything, and everything's connected to the cloud, and someone who actually works in technology and understands how it is has the one piece of technology is like a printer, and they have a gun next to it just in case it makes a sound they don't recognize.
Yes.
I leaned heavily into the Home Assistant stuff, and I would like to start getting rid of it. Having microphones that are just always on is spookier than I once thought it was.
I never worried about the microphones. I just knew that as soon as I bought something, it would like be not supported anymore, and so like you'd have to buy all new stuff. I don't know. I'm like, I don't need to buy $100 plug. I can flip a light switch. I don't know.
Right. I will say for the smart home stuff, if you get it from AliExpress or Temu, and then just get stuff that supports the Zigbee protocol, it's really cheap, and it's totally local, so you're not waiting on these round trip things to a
also
server.
Sounds like it might have Wi-Fi backdoors to something.
For sure. Yeah, so that's concerning. I still haven't quite figured out what the ideal smart home thing is. The thing I'm hung up on is like, I want the lights to be able to change color temperature. So they have to be smart bulbs. But then I also don't want to break how the lights already work, where it's a switch on the wall. Like, I don't want you to have an Apple Watch that's connected to the house to be able to work the lights. I want to be able to fall back on. They just work like regular lights. So that means have a smart switch instead of smart bulbs. But the problem with that is you can't have smart bulbs and smart switches. So then I was thinking, well, is there a dumb bulb that just changes color? And so then I could just change the voltage going to it, like have a dimmer switch on the smart bulb, on the smart switch, and then that changes the temperature. And Philips does make a bulb like that, but it's not good. It's like you barely notice the color temperature switch. So.
I'm sure it's certainly possible. So I have, it's not on right now because my GPU is running actually, and it makes it flicker. But I have a photo light which just has 2 sliders, and it's like how much yellow do you want and how much white do you want. So that's pretty dumb. Like, it's just how much of each.
That's perfect, actually. That's If we could do that, but like a smart switch, so that could be, those 2 levels could change. Hold on, there's a switch on the wall that has those 2 sliders?
No, it's on the back of this like photo light. So it's for photo and video, and it's just, it has 2 sets of LEDs. One are pure white and one are like more soft. Yeah. It's like, how much of each do you want? Yeah.
I think I want exactly that, but for every light in my house. Yeah. So perhaps that could be done just by running to every light. It's just like there's 2 lights for every light. So you have 2 parallel systems for power going to each light, and then one of them's a cool white and one of them's a warm white, and then you could mix them and
kind of fade them.
That might be the ideal solution then. And then whatever smart switch would have to
sounds overcomplicated.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Anyway, I could be talking about that for a while. Okay, let's
All
dig
right,
into
we're 20,
what
20
we're going
minutes
to talk
in.
about.
Let's
Yeah.
get to the meat. Yeah.
So I'd like to start by saying December was the hardest month of my life
Mm.
professionally so
Oh
far.
wow.
It was rough. Uh, One of the things that happened was we ended up having about half the childcare we usually do between holidays, and our babysitter is fantastic and like got sick for several days, and
Right.
there was some planned time that she was taking off, and yeah, so I had like half the time to work that I usually do, and at the same time, the consulting job that I was doing for Stacks. Oh man, I want to get more into this, but the I thought it was going to wrap up at the beginning of December,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't. And it ended up, and they had this launch date, and so I was kind of scrambling to make this launch date happen. And yeah, it was really hard. That I ended up having to put a lot more time into it at the end. I was cruising up until then, thinking like, wow, this is so great. People are paying me this amount of money, and I'm paying out this smaller amount of money to contractors, and I just show up for meetings, like make sure that things are going. Being a manager in consulting is so easy, and then at the end, it just kind of like fell on my face.
Yeah.
And at the same time that was going on, Rootabl was like that was the thing that kind of got compressed.
Hmm.
So nothing bad happened, and there was no major huge launches that happened that like needed a lot of my attention. But balls didn't really get pushed forward. I was pushing forward the project to do a refactor where the application layer is going to be redone in Rails, and have one of the core tables on ClickHouse. So like I had hired people to do that, and they were still pushing that forward. And yeah, so there's three things in that I want to unpack. The first one is I would love your uh, insight into how I might have managed the Stacks project better
Hmm.
so that it could have finished on time. So my perception of what happened was like I had something like 3 months to get done. A lot of work. Native apps for Mac and Windows, and a website, and the website included e-commerce stuff, so like a store and checking out through Stripe Checkout. And the hardest part of it was having being able to install apps natively on Mac OS and Windows. And for the web layer of it, I subcontracted out most of that to a junior developer who I'd worked with before, and like we're following the same sort of scheme that we had done on previous projects. And for the native app part of it, I subcontracted that out to, I think, our mutual friend Dave Sedia. Do you know Dave?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, Dave's great.
Yeah.
He had experience with Towery, with his main video editing app, and so yeah, he was familiar with like the technology needed to do that. And so my perception of what happened was like I had the plan of what needed to happen, and seemed like stuff was happening at a pretty good pace. And uh, Dave was working on stuff from the Towery side up, and then Ryan is the junior developer who was doing most of the front end stuff on the web. He was working from like the web down, so he would start with the buttons of click on this, and this will eventually install stuff, and putting together kind of an asynchronous installer at the same time as Dave was like writing these lower level functions and making sure that they worked on Mac and Windows and everything else. And so I'm looking at that like, well, that sounds about right. And they just need to meet in the middle, and that'll be fine. And so like 2 weeks before the deadline, they did meet in the middle, and installation worked. And I was like, wonderful. This is going to wrap up so nicely. And in the meetings I was having with the clients, one of which was is still, I think, a friend of mine from college. I hope we're still friends.
Yeah.
He like the feedback that I was getting from him and his co-founder were all very surface level things of like, we want this margin to be a little bit bigger, and there's this like transparent blob on the top. It's kind of this glassy thing that they call a lozenge,
Hmm.
from like a throat lozenge. I think it's
Yeah.
kind of
All
like
right.
an oblong shape.
Sure.
And so I cannot tell you the number of probably multiple hours of time just us talking about these lozenges, and like, is it the right opacity, and like, does it match this other one, and what if we do it like this, and so in these meetings, we leading up to the deadline, and then as we sort of like slowly drifted past the deadline, a lot of what we were talking about was this surface level stuff.
Hmm.
And in my mind, like the other stuff in the project was done. Like I knew that installations that I had seen installations work, and I'd seen the code on both sides, and it seemed pretty reasonable. And then we get to like 3 weeks past the deadline, and their like hard cutoff is like a month after the deadline, which would have been January. It was beginning of January that I think it was January 4th was like when they wanted to launch internally to their users. And so we're kind of creeping up to that, and it's like, I don't know, 2 weeks before that, and in a meeting they're like, hey, we haven't actually seen the installations working. And I'm like, oh, you haven't? That's a problem. Yeah, we should probably be focusing on that. What's going on? And so I tried it on mine, and it mostly worked. And Ryan was like, yeah, it works on mine. And we're trying it on theirs, and like they can't install it. And I'm like, well, shoot, okay, let's like iron out these bugs. And so then it was just kind of this scramble of like trying to get that working, and there's a lot of edge cases around installing stuff, and it's kind of the complicated architecture where the website needs to talk to the Towery app, which has a sub process, like a background process that has more administrative privileges of actually doing the installation. And so there's like 2 hops that each command needs to do to actually be able to install stuff. And there were a lot of little bugs in that. And then also uninstalling was a whole thing, especially I didn't know that we were going to need to install zip files, but apparently some of the architecture of some of these audio plugins, they have to be installed as zip files. And so now when uninstalling them, I got to think about, well, how do I keep track of what the files were that got unzipped? And so it was just, I was for multiple weeks, like didn't take a weekend off. Sarah was super stressed out because like she had to be watching the baby much more, which was, I feel so grateful that like she's in my life and can do that and had the flexibility to be able to. But it was rough. I would just like wake up and be like, okay, what are the fires to put out right now?
Right.
And like, okay, let's just focus on this. And then, okay, I have to watch Isabella for the next 2 hours. So like, let me go do something with her, and then I'm back, and let me keep doing that. And let me eat food really quick. And then I would keep doing that until it was time to go to bed. And then I would go to bed too late. And then I would wake up and be really tired and do the whole thing over again for weeks. It was like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks where it was like that intense of stuff. And we did it. We launched. They have a huge launch happening today that I've been kind of unplugged from. But some things I do feel really good about are like, it looks really good. I think there are still some rough edges around the installations, but Ryan in particular, I think, did a fantastic job of like ironing a lot of those out. Something that I think I did well is picking good tooling of like bug reports, and if a bug happens at any one of those layers, it gets reported back. So I feel good about that. And I feel really good for like the team that I set them up with. It's 2 non-technical founders, and so I was able to set them up with Ryan and then a Polish developer friend of mine named Miłosz. And so like this whole last week and a half was this trip to Cancun, where my dad was trying to bake the French fries and optimize that problem, which like that was kind of stressful for different reasons, traveling with a bunch of family and kids. But yeah, so what's my question? There have been a lot of moments where I've felt like if I had planned this out better, there would not have been this scramble at the end. And so I think what I'm curious about is like, what are the things I can be taking responsibility for that could prevent this sort of thing from happening next time? I think one thing I can point to is I was paying attention to the things they were paying attention to without pushing back on, we should not be paying attention to this. And I think I said yes to a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have said yes to, of like, okay, I know you don't like how this looks on the front end, but we cannot be talking about this because the main thing that I care about is like the thing that I know you're going to care about that you don't know yet is making sure that we've ironed out that like installations are rock solid. And I think I let myself get distracted of talking about the things that they wanted to talk about until all of a sudden it was this scramble to like clean up what's this very core thing in the app. Do I have a clear question? I don't know. I think I'm just curious of like, in hearing me describe this, does anything jump out to you of Christian, you didn't have the agile method of project management that obviously would have foreseen this happening. If,
so I could say a lot of different things. So in no particular order. Very unfortunately, these are lessons you have to learn for yourself. Like I could tell you till I'm blue in the face, every lesson I learned while consulting, and you'd make all the same mistakes. I have learned that from trying to talk to other people about this. Until you viscerally experience it, it's very hard to like intuit like what you have to do. So that aside, maybe what you could have done, and I'm not saying this is what I would have done. I probably would have made all the same mistakes. But when you're consulting, over communicate. That is common advice, but it is like, like if you are ever thinking something, you should probably tell the client, and then they can decide whether that's important or not. So like if you're like, you've never installed this, like maybe you should install this, like they can decide whether that's important or not. And then later when they say we've never installed this, you can say, yeah, I told you 4 weeks ago,
right.
Let's try it now. So over communicate for sure. The other is that sometimes this is just how things go. Like it sounds like you launched and it was successful, and so it was extremely stressful, yes, but it was still a success, which is probably hard to hear after how much work you did, based on all this stuff. But like it sounds like it went well, like it launched, which is more than a lot of projects. So it's still good.
Yeah. Lots of bugs, lots of like errors reported, but yeah, we did launch.
You launched,
people have
right?
this installed, and yeah. That part feels good.
And then the other thing is just the classic, the first 20% takes 80% of the time, and or whatever it is. Then the last
20%,
the last 20% takes the other 80% of the time. Yeah. That's always true, and no matter how much you plan for it, it still happens. I don't know. Like that's kind of tough advice. Like there's nothing you did wrong, I don't think. Like except learn and do it differently next time, I suppose. Yeah.
Something like if I was going to start this over today, if another one of these projects landed in my lap and I was going to do it over again, I think something I could have done differently is like personally jump in quicker. So like for the first 75% of the project, it was totally outsourced. I totally handed everything off over to Ryan and another developer named Manu, who is Ryan's friend, was doing just more front end work, and like I was just managing them. I didn't write a line of code in this thing until 75% time wise into the project, and I now see that as I feel like I abdicated responsibility for the core functionality of the app, and I think I really needed to own like knowing that the installations worked. I think because I knew from the very beginning that was going to be like the crux of the project,
right?
And so if I was going to do this particular project again, I think I would really want to fully understand how that installation is happening, and like make sure that we're, before we have any of the UI stuff in place, as early as we possibly can, be testing. Okay, let's get a product in there, even though we have to, be manually inserting it into the database, and let's be, on every computer we can. Let's go to this janky place and run this script, and that's going to mock installing the product and make sure that that's working. And I was resisting doing that because I knew it would be a lot of work, and I think I was optimistically sort of thinking like, well, it's Dave, I know, knows his stuff, and so he's going to be able to get me the functions I need to be able to install stuff. So I feel good about that. And then the front end doesn't feel so bad, and if I need to go and rewrite it, I could do that. But I think I bumped up my neuroticism of not trust it. Like I need to know that the core of it is working, and I need to do that as quickly as possible. And I want to. Like the thing that I feel like all clients are going to care about is like what they can actually see. They can't see that.
Right.
They just know if it succeeds or fails. They don't know how close the downloader is. And so I wanted to make sure that like the front end stuff was happening so that they felt like the project was progressing. Yeah. So that's where I was putting most of my attention. But I think shifting more of my attention to and investing it earlier into like, I know this is the core complexity of the app. I know this is going to be the rough spot. So let me like really make sure, hammer home that this is going to work.
Yeah. There's something else in there too, which is it sounds like you are being a project manager without doing some of the project manager things, which is this. I think I've talked about this before. Like non-technical people who are your clients, they have some idea about what it means to build software and like what is hard and what is easy and what works and what doesn't. Mm-hmm. And technical people have a completely different idea. And so like to non-technical people, it might be like, as long as the front end works, then it works.
Yeah.
Whereas people on the back end are like, no, there's like a million other things. And so as a sort of project manager in this instance, it sounds like you needed to spend more time connecting that non-technical to technical, like understanding, like bridging that gap, which I have multiple failed projects I could talk about while consulting that I won't, but multiple projects that I didn't do that on, and either had to give money back. I did that a couple times, or spend a whole bunch of time like you did to make sure it worked. So yeah, understanding that non-technical people have a completely different understanding of what technical work is key to projects working well.
Something that stood out to me from that is that I wasn't doing some of the project management things that I could have done to better manage that. And that's particularly interesting to me because I have never like formally studied project management.
Right, sure.
I just sort of like stumbled on this idea of, oh, you can manage a team with Asana and move tasks left to right. That sounds good. I know about the concept of Kanban boards and like these dependency trees and that sort of thing, but like, how do you learn that? Like, I think I'd be much better at it if I just did it again. And I think I learned a lot.
You just learned it. That is how you learn it.
Okay, well, all right.
by doing it and having it go wrong, is exactly how you learn it. Yeah, you can learn a little, I would say, by like studying like project management frameworks or something like that. But generally, you do it, and then now you know. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Lessons learned. It feels reassuring that like it makes intuitive sense to me that the most I could be learning and the quickest I could be learning is getting in there and making mistakes. So yeah, I think if I was going to do another project again today, I think I'd be a much better manager than I was at the start of this project. This was, to my credit, like this was the biggest project I've ever managed. This was the most I've ever outsourced. And all things considered, it went reasonably well.
I was gonna say, to the outside, it launched like that's you don't have to tell except you just did, but you don't have to tell all the details about what happened.
If anyone's interested in audio plugins, so if you make any kind of music, friends of mine have launched Stacks.audio for it's like a marketplace similar to Steam but for audio plugins. So if you want cool new virtual instruments or cool audio effect plugins. I think what's happening today is there's a huge audio conference where one of the biggest audio plugin developers is exclusively launching their newest plugins on Stacks. It's like this Game Boy themed. It like visually looks like a Game Boy, and it's Game Boy type effects. I don't totally understand it, but
sure.
Yeah, I think that's available today.
Cool.
If you go to stacks.audio, you can download that, and it's free, I think. Yes. Okay. Reasonable. I have another call with them today, and I think it's possible I've met everything that was in the initial proposal, and there are a lot of things that I objectively went above and beyond on. There was like a redesign of the app that they wanted to do that I was like, yeah, sure, I'll redesign everything and redo all that work, and lots of really finicky UI things and lots of like extra things of complexity. This is going to sound silly, but like I wasn't planning on having a shopping cart. And then they were like, well, of course we need a shopping cart. And I was like, oh,
that's exactly something that, it's like, oh, every website has a shopping cart. How hard could it be?
Right. Yep. And just totally changed how our whole checkout flow, because we were doing it through Stripe checkout. And yeah, that was, that kind of sucked. Oh man, they also really wanted a menu bar icon. And I very intentionally did not include a menu bar icon in the proposal.
Yep.
Chris, I hate menu bar icons. I feel like it's applications that have an ego that's too big want to live in the menu bar. There's somewhere it makes sense. There's somewhere like it only lives in the menu bar, and if it's menu like a quick launcher thing
on the operating system. What do you mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you have the native app installed, like having a app there. So they really wanted a menu bar because we have to have a menu bar. Like every application in this space has a menu bar icon, and fair enough. I don't know the audience and
right.
But the only thing in the menu bar right now is you click on it and it says quit or OpenStax. Like, I don't know.
Sure.
So we included that for them and a bunch of other stuff. So I also like gave them 2 people to hire to move forward with this, and like recruiting fees are a thing, right? I didn't charge them anything for that. So I think overall I feel good about it, and I'll be curious to hear from them later today if they're like, we're not paying you any more money. Actually, you owe us money because
Right.
that went so terribly. Or I don't think that's what they'll say, but it's possible they're like, yes, everything was late, but there were these other things that you went above and beyond on. So yeah, we're reasonably happy. And yeah. So that's two of the things that were going on in my life in the last month was stacks and babysitting. Anything else to round out those two sections?
No, that sounds good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now the third thing,
All right.
which got very spicy.
Yeah.
If you'll remember in the last call, I on our last episode, I feel like I was just like riding high of like, look at me managing all the things. I'm being a co-founder and I'm like doing this consulting thing and everything's going so well. So one of those things was Rootabl. I've already unburied the lead by saying was. So Rootabl, if you're a listener doesn't know what it is this affiliate management platform. So if you're primarily like a course creator, one of the best ways to grow your course is through affiliate sales. You find friends of yours or influencers who have an adjacent audience, and you give them a cut of your sales. So if you sell your course for $100, you might tell a influencer, hey, my course is for people who want to learn how to cook better food. You have this audience on Instagram of 1 million people who follow you because of the food that you cook. If you send people to my site and they end up buying my course, I'll give you 40 of those $100. And so it's great all around. I had no idea how big this industry was before actually seeing these numbers and being connected to these people's Stripe accounts. It's crazy. I've seen these like multi-million-dollar launches happen in a month that like I did not realize this industry was so huge. It was funny too, because at the same time I was seeing these $1 million launches, I'm hearing people behind the scenes like, oh, we expected it to be like 20% bigger. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This money's coming in so fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had, gosh, I guess a year and a half ago now, taken this consulting job to make the initial version of Rootabl. And at the time, I built it in Firebase, which was a terrible design decision. I realized retrospectively.
See last episode too.
Yes.
Understand why. Yeah.
Do not use a non-relational database for information that very much needs to be related. Yes. So did that, and then we kind of launched, and there were kind of some people using it, but Laura, my co-founder at the time, kind of went into like hibernation and didn't talk to her for a little bit, and then she was like, okay, like yeah, let's pick this back up and let's figure out what needs to happen to like make this a real thing. So I got back into it, and we worked out about this would have been, I don't know, 9-ish months ago, a revenue sharing deal where I was like, okay, you don't have a lot of cash on hand right now, but I can see the potential in this. So let's say that, this amount of top line revenue, I think it was something like 30%. I was saying that I'll get 30% of top line revenue, and then it has a cap of this much. And we worked out this whole deal. And somewhere in there, we had one of these huge customers come in, and I was like, wow, this is actually way bigger than I thought it was. I was planning on just kind of being like a fractional CTO, but actually I'd really like to own more of this. Like what might that look like? And at the same time, she was like, I would love if this was moving faster, if development was happening faster. So what might it look like if, what would need to happen so that you're spending more time doing this? And so the deal we came to was, what if I was a co-founder? So this was about 6 months ago. And the deal we came to, so we had like put together a formal contract with the previous thing, and then about 6 months ago we were like, well, let's do a trial of what it would be like to be a co-founder, and in principle it would make sense if I had 40% and she had 60%, and things went, I think, pretty good for a couple of months, like 3 or 4 months, and then this last month happened, and this last month I had no time. And I was trying my best to communicate with Laura about what was happening, but there have been some perpetual problems that I think we've had in communication of, how might I frame that? Something that I think she has felt consistently frustrated by is like not knowing what's going on the technical front. And something I would really recommend actually is we found a couples therapist for founders who we had 2 sessions with him, and we're both able to talk through like what's going on both of our ends, and like I felt like it was slowly improving. We were able to point to these are the things that I'm doing that I could be doing differently that would help Laura better understand what's going on and have better communication and that sort of thing. And the the last session we had was right before this hell month of Stacks imploding. And so from Laura's perspective, what she saw was like this session that we had where I was like, oh yeah, I could be doing these things to improve it. And then it got worse.
Yeah.
Like things were happening slower. And she was like, Christian, like what's going on? This can't keep happening. And to my credit, nothing broke. There were no data leaks, nothing crashed.
Right.
New features were slowly trickling out. I added like support for Canadian bank transfers and still pushing along the Rails front to do this Rails transition. And then I had let her know that like I had this vacation planned. And so after this period of like even less communication than before and even fewer things getting done, I was like, well, time for my planned vacation. See you later. I'll be back in a week. And I was really excited after that week of like, I have this whole plan of what I'm going to do. And there's this Rails transition. And like, I think it's going to be about another month. And then I'm going to feel really rock solid about how everything's put together. And the ClickHouse stuff in particular, like I know so much about column-oriented databases now. And if you have any kind of an application where there's data that needs to be written on the scale of like terabytes per month, and you need to do some sort of analytics on that, particularly if you don't need to edit it, if you can somehow organize things so that you don't have to edit them, and you need the queries to be really fast, so like real-time massive amounts of data, column-oriented databases like ClickHouse are the way to solve that problem. And I was so excited to get to use that because it's like the problem that they're organized for. And then also just like a handful of bugs on the next app that were all caused by opinions that I had about ways to do stuff that I had to choose because there's not strong opinions built into Next.js or Supabase. They give you a lot of freedom, and it just became this tangled mess. And so like simplifying that into the Rails code base, which is, I don't know, 80% done. So the next 20% would take like 80% of the work.
Yep.
But it's just so much cleaner. And like, oh my gosh, MVC just makes so much more sense. Oh my gosh. If nothing else, over the last, I don't know, 3 months, I have learned so much about like the good application architecture and management, and like, oh my goodness, what a master class. You got your master's degree in computer science. I got my master's degree at the School of Hard Knocks. I'm like, how to build applications. I am so much better at that now than I was 3 months ago, and I feel like I have much more wise design choices of like how to build things. And oh man, it was just the whole thing. So anyway, do I tell this story? I'll tell the story, and I might cut it out. So if I decided to cut it out, we're gonna have an awkward transition at this moment. So there was
before you tell the story, then
go ahead.
I have to go to the bathroom. So
okay, go to the bathroom.
This would be a good cut anyway.
Yes.
All right, hold on.
Okay.
The dog was barking about. It turns out my wife is cooking, and the dog is very upset that she is not giving him onions. Dogs cannot eat onions. So, usually when we cut something up like apples or whatever, we give him an apple, not onions. Yeah.
Poor dog. I'm reminded of two things. The first is there's a series of posts that's like, why is my child crying? It's like these toddlers hysterical on the ground. The caption below it is like, he's mad because I wouldn't take him on a trip to the moon or something like that.
Yep.
And then the second thing is when the Amazon Alexa and Google Home first came out, I developed an app called Can My Dog... No. Dr. Doggy.
Yeah, okay.
So you would say, Alexa, ask Dr. Doggy if dogs can eat onions.
Nice.
And it would tell you whether or not dogs can eat onions.
That's very helpful, yeah. We took our dog for training, and we have a sheet on our fridge that, basically has everything that they can't eat. So, but Alexa would be a good,
Lots of joke ones in there. People always ask if dogs could eat their friends or like
sure. Yeah.
particular body parts. Yes. Okay. So anyway, the thing that I might cut out.
Yeah.
Midway through the trip, so I'm on vacation, and the first 3 days of the vacation, I'm just trying to find any spare hour I can to wrap up this mission critical Stacks thing. That's like my last thing I have to do on Stacks, which I'm very proud of, by the way. I had to like relearn how RSA encryption works to rewrite their authorization library. Really good stuff, and it's like tested, and it's beautiful.
All right.
Yeah.
Did you think about the adage, if you have to write RSA encryption, you're doing it wrong?
I didn't like. The only thing I had to relearn was the numbers that had to be stored correctly. Like I'm using
Okay. Okay.
libraries for
Great.
everything.
Great. Great. I thought you were like actually doing the encryption
No,
or
no, no. I
something.
didn't. I didn't like write a
All right.
library to do RSA
Awesome.
encryption. No, no, no.
Good. Good
I'm
news.
not. My hubris. My hubris has a limit.
Good. Just
Um,
checking.
the hard part was like there were these two libraries, one in C++ in that I had to use these libraries in Juice, which is the audio plugin library.
Oh, all right.
JUCE. It's what audio plugin developers use.
Okay.
It's a C++ library. So they have cryptographic libraries built in.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to use those because I want to try to make this thing as portable as possible, where it's just like one file that you put in and it'll just work. And then the keys have to be generated and the tokens have to be generated on the JavaScript side.
Sure.
So I had to figure out how to get these two things connected to each other, and it was was hard because
Yeah.
like it's just this random dude or small number of random dudes in Australia or England that made this juice library, and they're really smart guys, but like they made these opinionated choices in how the RSA library works that are not industry standard. And so I had to figure out what those choices were that they did. Like the way that the keys are stored, it's these two numbers separated with a comma, which they just like made up their own way to store RSA keys, which is fine. That is a valid way to do it. Apparently, I didn't know that a couple weeks ago. Yeah, and then one side was using Little Indian and the other side was using Big Indian. And that
That's
took
so
me
bad.
the longest time to figure out. That was rough, but then it worked. And like when it works, when like okay, the sign key is verified on this side. Oh my god, yes. Oh, hold on, is an incorrect key not verified? No, it's not. It's not working. So like,
Right.
this, my god, the euphoric rush I felt when like the final test case actually worked was amazing.
As a callback, all of that, the front end people don't care about it at all, or they don't understand. Like it just took you 20 hours to figure out Big Indian versus Little Indian.
Yes, they just want to know does it work or not, and if it worked and had false positives, it would take a long time for anybody to figure out. Like, hold on, like, this person was able to generate just a random key and it worked. Yeah, so I feel really good about that actually. Anyway, so we're like 3 days in, and I'm like, finally. The third day, I can finally relax. And so that night I slept really well. And then the next day, Sarah was like, let's go to a beach. Just you, me, and Isabella. And I was like, that sounds great. So we're at the beach, and I'm like, how wonderful. And then I get a text from Laura, and she's like, hey, I just invited myself and my CTO friend to the meeting that you have on your calendar with your two developers working on Rails. And my heart, not my heart. I felt this like ball in my stomach. And I was just like, oh, what? What is this? First of all, I forgot that I had that meeting tomorrow. So I probably would have just rescheduled it. It actually is double booked with this cooking class that we were going to that I was excited about. So that sucks. And then also, what? Who's your CTO friend? Like, what's good? So I called her, and on the call, she was like, "Yeah, I'm having trouble understanding the Rails transition. So, yeah, my CTO friend is gonna like help me translate." And I was like, "Oh well, okay, that seems reasonable." It kind of sucks that I have to figure out scheduling now with this cooking class, but that's fine. And Sarah was also very helpful in like thinking through that. But anyway, so the next morning comes around, and I'm gonna end the meeting and then take a taxi to the second half of the cooking class, and it just felt oh man. So like I get on with Kuba and Piotr, the two Polish developers who are working on the Rails stuff. And we're just chatting, and then Laura hops on, and she's like, "Hey, I haven't met you guys yet." No, yeah, introductions. And then the CTO friend comes on, and he did not smile the entire meeting. And I oh man, in school, did you ever have like a day where a supervisor comes into the teacher's room?
Sure.
And they're just like the level of tension in the room feels so much higher just with this person standing in the back. That's kind of what it felt like, and he was asking me these very good questions. I think he was trying to be like legitimately helpful, and it was very reasonable questions of like, why are you transitioning to Rails if you already have the app written in Next.js? And I was like, that's a very good question. This is, here are the reasons why. It's the architecture is kind of spread out all over the place, and we have 4 different ways to write serverless functions, including in the main like this core dependency of the app of when a charge comes in, how do you figure out which affiliate should get commission and how much it should be? And so it's very untestable, and it's like making changes in that part of the app is very brittle and makes a bunch of other things fall over. So that's one of the reasons. And also philosophically, with Vercel, I feel misaligned with them of It makes me feel very uneasy. This serverless infrastructure that like you can get these giant bills in a weekend, and there's not really protection from that. And also philosophically, I feel like Next.js as a framework is more of a marketing tool for Vercel than it is an actual web framework. And I think there are instances where that makes a lot of sense, but that's not the foundation that I want to build my house on. I'd like to feel like the servers are portable and that I could just turn around and host it somewhere else. And I feel like that went reasonably well, although I was stressed out of my mind the whole time. was, uh, yeah, because this was the first time I'd ever interacted with this guy, and he was asking me very, very pointed questions of like, why have you made the design decisions that you've made? So yeah, that didn't feel great. And then afterwards, had a conversation with Laura. I think it was later that day or the next day, where we lined out like, okay, what might options look like? And I was like, look, here's where I am. I understand I've done a terrible job over the last month, and here are the reasons why. My workload doubled, and the amount of time I had to do it in went down by half. So I had 4 times more stuff to do all of a sudden. I think I made a mistake, perhaps taking on the consulting job, thinking I could do both at once. One of the places where I failed also was like mismanaging that project. Here's what I'd like to do going forward. I'd like to, as soon as I get back, finish this Rails transition in a month, and here's roughly what I think that's going to look like. And she was like, okay, that's a viable plan, but like, just kind of hypothetically, what might it look like if what would we have to do if I'm caricaturizing her? It's very kind this whole time.
Sure.
Yeah. But I was like, okay, yeah, I would feel very sad because I put a lot of work into this app, and I'm very proud of it, and I have this whole plan of how I want to finish it and do this transition, and yeah, that would feel bad to like not be able to follow through in that. But here are some options. Like I could just take the amount of time that I spent on it, and we could multiply that by my consulting rate, and we could say that you owe me that much. And that's one way we could go. And so a few days later, then on the flight home, like right before we were about to take off, small anecdote. Our flight so we're flying from Cancun to Dallas. You know what's midway between that is Boca Chica, Texas. And the time when we were flying was the exact time when one of the rocket ships exploded in the air.
Starship 7, yeah.
Yeah, so we were about to take off, and then we were just sitting on the runway for like 20 minutes, and they were like, we just got word that we need to reroute. So
that's terribly awesome.
Isn't that like we're living in the future? My airplane got delayed by a spaceship.
Yeah.
Yeah, super, super cool. Anyway, so right before we're about to take off for real for the second time, I get a message from Kuba and Piatra, and they're like, hey, Laura said to stop working? What's up with that? And I was like, nuts. But I actually felt really good. It was like this weight lifted off of like, well, the ambiguity has disappeared, and that was part of the angst of it's kind of hard to be simulating multiple futures at once and like what's going on. So that felt like kind of a clarifying moment. So then all the way home back in the plane, Sarah and I were talking about like what are potential next steps. So that's the core thing of what are we like over an hour in? That's the core thing of what I want to ask you about is like what the next steps are. But we'll round out this section first. So then I get home and Laura and I have a conversation the next day, and she's like, yep, I would like to try to find other ways to do this. And I understand that. And I think all things considered, it worked out reasonably well. And I think she certainly has a lot of reason to be angry at me. And I think I certainly have, as earnestly as I can, I did everything I could. Like, looking back at the decisions I made, there's a lot of decisions that going forward with the information I have now, I think I could make much better. But like, I feel really good about the work I was able to get done in the time I was able to do it. And I feel sad that I let people down and like wasn't able to fully embody. Like I really value and thrive in being able to just knock stuff out of the park and do a really good job. And I wasn't able to do that this last month on multiple fronts. And I think the one thing I can kind of point to is I think I was a really good dad during all that. Like I never snapped at Isabella. I was able to spend time with her. At no point did we like leave her with a terrible babysitter or something because I had to get more work done. So I feel really good about that. There's a few other things I can point to that I feel good about of like the RSA thing, and we didn't have anything go down that whole time. And next time with the lessons I've learned, I think I could do much better. So I'll pause there for any thoughts you have about the Rootabl thing ending.
So the thing I latched onto is that as soon as it was clear what the decision was, you felt relieved. I think I've had bad things happen to me in consulting in the past, and I felt relieved as soon as they happened. And only good things have come from that. So like it was a bad situation. As soon as I felt relieved, I knew that I was on the next path. And so I think, like it's a sucky situation. I think you can only learn from it. It sounds like she'll be fine. So no one was like, irreparably harmed. So it's a bad situation that I think you can both learn from, and then you both feel relieved probably. So that's what I would latch onto. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that sounds about right. I feel the same sort of sense of catharsis from like relationships ending, or like
sure.
What's another good example? There was a cool like co-housing situation I was in once where and then it kind of exploded. And only good things came out of that. Like looking back at the
as soon as it's done, you kind of know like that was the ending, and that was the right ending.
I learned a lot, felt a lot of feelings, and I'm earnestly excited for seeing what happens. And I wish Laura the best. I think it's going to be tricky. I think it's going to be hard. I think, and I told her all this of like there are definite things we can point to, especially in that last month, that I think I could have done better. Sure. There are things I could have done through the entire situation of communication that I think I could be doing better, that I was slowly crawling my way towards improving. And it's tough trying to like find in any sort of relationship, there's going to be a set of things that you're frustrated with the other person. And if the solution is, well, let me just find a new person, you're kind of rolling the dice again of what are the things that I was getting for free that I am now not going to be getting for free that I wasn't even thinking about. Yeah.
Well, and then on your side, it sounds like you were trying to be a dad and a co-founder and a consultant. And one of those things had to give, right?
Yep.
So I have been there for sure. And that's another thing you can only learn by doing it.
Yeah. Multiple moments in that month, I was like, this is too much. I cannot, something has to change.
Right.
And then two things changed. Like the consulting ended, I think. We'll find out later today if it actually has ended. And the co-founder changed. And so now this is the part of the conversation that I'm excited to have, which is like,
an hour
what
in.
do I do? I went from like the busiest month of my life to I just have this green field of light that I was planning on being in super turbo mode with Rootabl on. And now it's I can do anything. So one of the things Sarah and I were talking about on the plane is like, I have never had a real job. And perhaps some of the reasons why this consulting thing and Rootabl weren't working is that the rough edges I have are edges that could be smoothed out by having a more traditional job of like, I've never been managed by anyone. Like I've worked in consulting and when you have a client, you're kind of being managed, but it's not quite the same. Things in like communication also of like, I have no habit of routinely checking my email. And I think that's a thing that's really important in a regular job. I think there's a lot of things that I don't know that, even if I was talking to you, like you mentioned in consulting, you could tell me all the mistakes that you made, but it's different like being actually in it. I think we'll probably be surprised by the things that I'm surprised by in a regular job. I'm like, I didn't know that you, I don't know, had to censor yourself on Twitter when you have a job. I don't know. So that's an option that I'm seriously considering. And you seem to have had a great time at Google. And in college, I actually, like, if I was going to work for a tech company, I think it would have been Google. Google was a lot cooler, I think, in college. Like and I felt like they were cooler. Like, oh my gosh, you got ping pong tables in the office, and that's not nearly as important to me anymore. But and food, like free food, I think. I don't even know if it's a thing they do anymore, but
it is, and it's delicious.
Amazing. that I'm still excited about. That'd be really cool. So like, and also the salary sounds amazing. That there's a guaranteed salary. So one of the calculations I made on the plane is there's an amount of money that I would love for my family to have, like perpetually. That's like our burn rate of what we'd be living a comfortable life, and that amount is roughly 2.6 times the amount of money that we have right now. And
2.6 times.
Like if we take all the amount of money that we have invested right now and multiply that by 2.6 times, so more than twice as much, then that amount of money invested would then kick off the amount of money that we need to spend per year. Not that we need to spend, that like would be a very comfortable lifestyle. And so doing the financial calculations of like what a salary at a company like Google might look like, if I'm working for something like, I think 7 years, and it's a lot of fluctuation. You can play with a lot of variables of what the interest rates are and how much I'm earning an interest in, like bonuses and if the salary goes up, and a lot of variables. But roughly, I think if I'm working about 7 years, I think we could hit that number. And so the important thing there, so from a broader perspective, I was previously thinking that I'm trying to get to that number as fast as possible. And the fastest way to get there is to like build a company and then have the equity, and then I have that amount of money in equity, and so that could be kicking off money or right. But it was interesting doing that math of actually like 7 years at a company that I'm enjoying. Like I like interacting with people, and I'd be learning a lot. That'd be kind of neat. And then after that, if it's something I've been in for 7 years, well, I'm probably enjoying it. So like I could continue that. Just right. But having hit this financial milestone. So that's one subset of the category of options of get a traditional job. There's also like, I think it might be cool to work in person. That'd be a much bigger change. But I've never been able to do that. I've never like had office culture and office life, and I'm actually kind of excited about that. I don't know, like Jared by the water cooler. What are him and his kids up to? Let's go do this. Like I've never had that interaction. Most of my like friend interactions are on things like this. We're just now starting to having kids is kind of this dowsing rod, I think is the right term, of you find all the other people around you who have kids. Like you're all in a very similar life stage. Is dowsing rod the right term, or lightning rod?
I mean, dowsing rod is the two little sticks that cross to find water. That
yes,
probably BS, but yes. who am I to say?
There's a lot of things that I thought I knew about that I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. Anyway, yes. So that's kind of that's a category of option that I think is looking the most promising right now. Is I get a job, and there's a lot of unknowns I have in that of like, how do I get a job? I'll need a resume. Do I find a recruiter, and like, what's a reasonable salary expectation? What am I asking for? Do I want something in person? What sort of role am I looking for? Do I want to be a Rails developer? Do I want to be Patrick McKinsey has this article about don't call yourself a developer. Am I an engineering manager actually, or do I instead of going into a bigger company where I would need more of a defined title, do I find a smaller company like a Tailwind-esque company of just a couple of people where they might benefit more from me having more of a broad skill set and able to wear more hats, and kind of do my own autonomous thing within that bigger company. So there's a lot of unknowns within this subcategory. Perhaps that's where I'd like to start. What are your thoughts in the get a job subcategory?
Yeah, I have many thoughts about this because I did it, right? I was in your shoes, and then I decided to get a job. Having a job is nice in a lot of ways. It's also very constricting in a lot of ways. So think about both of those. I actually wrote down some questions to see what you might want to do with your life, right? I will start with, right now is probably the worst tech job market since 2008.
Oh, so I didn't know that. That sucks.
Especially in terms of large tech companies. Meta just said they're laying off 5 to 10% of the people. And I think Amazon and Microsoft are following suit. Google, who knows? Um,
If I remember correctly, you got hired during one of these phases.
I
It
did,
might not have
yeah.
been quite as bad as this, but yeah.
No, I did. I got hired right after, during, and right after hiring freeze, and so like there is still hiring happening for sure,
Mm-hmm.
um, especially with smaller companies. So that's part of where I'm headed. Is like for big companies, like the hiring phase is like 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
and like for
6 months? My
oh yeah,
goodness.
mine was a year. Like yeah,
Really?
yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah, and for
What
smaller
do what
companies,
do if you have a job already and you're trying to get hired at Google, what
oh, it sucks for sure.
okay. So
Yeah,
like do people take a year off to get hired at Google? Like what I don't
people do all
understand.
sorts of different things. Yeah.
Okay.
It's it yeah. Big tech is a whole different animal, I would say.
Yikes.
Yeah,
Okay. Well that would be a long time.
yeah.
Okay.
But let me back up and start with some
Yes.
questions.
Yes,
The
yes.
first is, so you mentioned in person. So my first question was, do you want to be remote? Do you want to be like by yourself, or do you want to be in person? If you're in person, do you want to be in Dallas? Do you want to be in Texas, US, worldwide?
Yes. If I could wave a magic wand
Yes.
in this moment of like what my ideal role might
Mm-hmm.
be, first of all, it would have a gigantic salary. Also with
Okay.
also with a lot of equity that
Yeah.
then
All right.
would be worth even more. And it would have an office in Dallas
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't have to go to. But
Okay.
anytime I wanted to go to it, if I was like, I want to get out of the house,
Yep.
then I could like go into the office and hang out with people and be like, this is great. And there would be free food, and I don't know, free sleep pods and
Yeah. Yeah.
dry cleaning. I don't know. And there would be cool people there that I could interact with, and like a giant whiteboard I could whiteboard stuff out on, and and then I could work from home whenever I wanted to. That like if we wanted to go to Europe and visit Sarah's mom, or if we wanted to like go up to New York when my family's there, it would be no big deal if I was going to take multiple months and be totally remote. And yeah, I don't want to relocate. I'd like to stay in Dallas. So either remote or like hybrid remote with a company that's in Dallas, I think
Okay.
for that section of it. Yeah.
That's great. That's super clarifying.
Okay.
The next is what you were talking about before, which is, what do you actually want to do? Do you want to develop? Do you want to manage people? Do you want to be more like an architect kind of person? Do you want to be a
Yeah.
co-founder? What type of work do you want to do every day? Assuming this is going to be a big shift from what you were doing before, assuming you're actually spending 40 hours a week doing
Yeah.
something.
Yes.
What do you want to do?
So here are some things I enjoy.
Yeah.
I really enjoy. I've heard Andrew Culver describe this as domain modeling, where you're just like you're having conversations with customers where they're or non-technical people of any kind, stakeholders they might be called in corporate, where they're like, here's the thing we're trying to get done, and it's kind of this fuzzy, hazy, like these people need to buy these things, and we need to generate this report at the end of it, and we got to keep track of it in this way, and translating that to these are the tables that need to be created and here's how they need to be related, and like here's roughly the pages that need to happen, and here's roughly what the interactions need to be on those pages to be able to make that thing happen. I really enjoy that. That's like when I feel my brain most light up, when I'm like making those connections and doing that sort of modeling. In the era of LLMs, I also really enjoy coding with an LLM. I was like before this LLM thing happened, I was kind of feeling the pull of, oh, let me be writing less code, let me figure out how to be outsourcing more of it to people. Now that we have LLMs, I can just fly through stuff faster than outsourcing it, and that's not true in all problem domains. But like I have learned the skill of managing people, and I really enjoy that. I like interacting with people and like having that sort of interaction. And I have found I really enjoy having that same sort of interaction with an LLM, and like setting up the tooling to make that happen. And well, setting it up, I don't really enjoy it. After it's set up, yeah, just kind of having a conversation with an LLM to get stuff done. And I see that as only getting better. Like LLMs are only getting more capable, and I think it's going to be really soon that we're going to be able to just talk to a computer and say, here are the tables I want to create, and even have that help with the domain modeling, like interacting with an LLM in that way to build stuff. I really enjoy, and I have found it challenging and also enjoyed it doing more of the project management side of like, we've set up what the project is, and let's set these as the deadlines and kind of roughly sketch out what things need to happen when, and coordinate people of like, okay, Dave, you're going to build stuff up from the native side up, and Ryan, you're going to build stuff up from the website down, and I'm going to coordinate you two to meet in the middle. That sort of thing I really enjoy. And then there's sort of like a unrelated grab bag of things. I like recording videos, and that's kind of fun. I like talking to people. I like giving presentations. I enjoy traveling. Flying places is fun. I like being physically active, but not too much. I like walking. Yeah. Is that enough to go on?
That's helpful. Yes.
Yeah.
And then my last question is, what is your goal? So you talked about 7 years at some salary gets you to some goal. Mm-hmm. Certainly, selling a startup tomorrow would get you to some goal, or working for, 30 years at some lower salary gets you to some goal.
Right.
What is your goal in the next, say 1 to 5 years in terms of salary, work-life balance, raising your kids, etc.?
Something that became clear to me during this month was that it's really important to me to be a good father. Like, that's the one thing that I did not compromise on. So through my revealed preference, the work-life balance is really important. Like, if I have to sacrifice something else, if it's source of like, you can double your salary, but it's going to mean that you're going to see your daughter half as much as you do right now, and you're going to be gone for weeks at a time. I don't think I would make that choice. I don't think that'd be worth it. So that's the core thing that I'm valuing. What else do I want? I need some sort of meaningful work in my life. I've gone through periods where I just haven't worked at all, where I'm defining work as like building stuff with a computer. I find
Sure.
like more than anything else I've ever done, that's the consistently most rewarding work-related thing that I've done. I remember really specifically, there was this, I was on this trip to Costa Rica. This beautiful lush rainforest and like this jungle, and there was this zip lining trip. And so you pay, it was like $150 to go on this hour-long zip lining trip. And it was like one of the fastest zip lines in the world. It goes like 60 miles an hour, and it's just this beautiful jungle, and you climb up in this big tree, and it's like these heights, and you strap yourself in, and you're going. And about 20 minutes into the zip lining trip, the first 20 minutes were just kind of euphoric. I was like, this is amazing. And then, I don't know, 20 or 30 minutes into it, as I'm like mid zip line, this beautiful, there's like a sloth over the tree next to me, and there's like these beautiful toucans, and but there's nothing for me to do. I'm just kind of sitting there like watching this go by. I had the thought like, oh man, I'd really like to be coding right now. There's this problem I've been working on that like, I think the solution to it just came to me like, oh, I'd really like to do that. And then the second half of the trip, like, I'm just kind of thinking about that the whole time. And then I got back to my computer and was like, yes, good. This is what I wanted to be doing. So I think it's important for me to have something I'm doing that's building stuff, that's helping people. That's like the most fulfillment I get from a work perspective. If there's like the ideal of it is there's this person who's like, oh my gosh, I spend like 4 hours of my day on this thing, and if only there was a way to automate this. And then my brain lights up and I'm like, oh my gosh, didn't you know that you can connect this thing to this other thing? Hold on. And then I whip something together and give it to them, and they're like, holy cow, this is incredible. I'm going to use this thing. Thank you so much. This is going to save me so much time, and I'm going to share it with all my friends. And then I post about it, and then other people like them are like, wow, this is great. This is exactly the thing I needed. That's what really lights my brain up. And fundamentally, it took me a long time to kind of articulate this, but like, helping people is all where it's at. That's if I'm just making software for the sake of making software, it's kind of pointless. Like the point of it is to help people live better lives, and I see technology as a great tool to be able to do that. So the more that I could be doing that at like a bigger scale or solving harder problems, I think that's something that I need in my life.
All right. Based on all of that, I have multiple recommendations. We'll see which one of these lands. Okay. The first choice is you could do nothing for a little while. I think that's an overlooked option. You had 2 things that were very stressful just end.
Mm-hmm.
You could just do nothing for a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd consider that.
I like that.
The second thing is you could start a new company that try to build a product to do something. I don't think it matters exactly what, but you could do a lot of what you were talking about and be a founder in a new company. Um, and whether that's joining someone else or starting something yourself, I think that's definitely an option.
I have options for that, by the way, that I've prepared.
All right, all right. The next one I would say is you can continue consulting,
Mm-hmm.
but I would go a little higher level than you have been. You said you really like when you figure out what somebody wants and
Mm-hmm.
you get a technical solution that really works for them. I'm paraphrasing, but in this age of LLMs, like you talked about, and AI, like you could go to business people and be like, LLMs can solve this thing for you. Here's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's a whole consulting option that I don't think you have explored yet, which you definitely could, and I think you'd be well suited for. Um, that'd be mostly talking to people, and part of it is like explaining how AI works.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I have
another
a
option.
quick thought there, which is
Go ahead.
something that I've seen repeated on X, which is a sentiment that I strongly agree with, is that software is going to move to be much more niche
Sure.
and one-off, and like you look at Google's and Metas of the world, and the amount of internal custom software that they have just to internally run their own business.
Right.
Any business would benefit from that level of customizability. It's just been infeasible from a cost perspective for them to do that. So yeah, like imagine, I don't know, your local bakery. The economics are now shifting in favor of that local bakery can just spin up their own software. Like
Sure.
that's a thing that could happen. They could have their own custom ordering app, and I don't know what that future is going to look like then. If you would still want some sort of centralized place where you could like order from everywhere, but maybe there's a protocol. I get too in the weeds. Like that's an industry trend that I think I see on the horizon, is that more businesses are going to want more custom software because the cost is going to drastically go down.
I agree, although I would caution like the bakery case because bakeries never pay for software. I would
Yes,
go for more like the 100-person, financial firm.
for sure. Yeah.
They will pay for software, right? Like, and they're still extremely niche. Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, so that's the third one, and then the fourth one would be getting a job, right?
Yep.
And if you get a job, you could do one in like a large tech company, which is possible, but right now extremely difficult.
Mhm.
It's a very hard tech market, or like with anyone that or any say 20-person firm in Dallas, like you could probably get a job relatively quickly,
Mhm.
and that would be more of a money now, sacrifice some of the individuality, you know, for money basically. Yeah, so those are kind of my four thoughts. It sounds like you have some thoughts of your own. What of those made sense? What did you latch onto? What do you not want to do? Yeah, what do you think?
In this moment, I'm kind of excited about all those. Like I can come up with pros and cons
Yeah, right.
to each one. So like to clarify the four options, I think the first one was do my own thing.
The first one was like take a break, I think.
I think take a break is going to make sense regardless, and I think that's kind of going to be built
Sure.
into,
Okay.
especially if it's only a month. Like, yeah, I think take a break is just going to happen.
Okay.
But then after the break,
Yep.
and kind of what I can be thinking about during the break is that I could be starting another SaaS,
Yep.
either with a co-founder or without. The second option was to get a job,
Mm-hmm.
and that could be like big company or small local company. And then the third is consult
Mm-hmm.
more. Yeah.
A little higher level, I think, is what I was suggesting. Yeah, consult
When
a
you say
little
higher
higher
level,
level.
what does that mean?
It means you're not the one actually telling. Well, you may or may not be the one actually telling people what code to write.
Mm-hmm.
It sounded like when you were describing to me what made you feel good, it was like solving someone's problem. I'll paraphrase,
Mm-hmm.
which is slightly higher level consulting than actually doing the implementation.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a difficult like area to get into because people who have enough money to do that end up hiring like Deloitte or Accenture or something.
Yeah, yeah.
So that can be tricky. But like I think with giant shift that is happening towards AI, I think you could be someone who consults with mid-level tech companies to shift more towards this AI kind of future. Mm-hmm. And that could mean a higher level type of consulting than you have been doing.
Okay. Okay. So pros and cons thoughts that I have for each one of those. I'll start backwards, actually. Consulting, I think I know so much more about it now than I did a month ago. And I enjoyed it. And it's kind of fun, like, not having to support something forever, especially from the beginning. I'm approaching it with, like, I'm going to build this thing for you, and then, like, this is my plan for you to have continued support, but, I'm going to deliver on this thing and then be done. An idea that I had from a friend of mine I was talking to asked me if I'd considered government contracts for software. Mm. And my initial impulse to that was like, absolutely not, because like the red tape and the certifications, and I don't even want to get into that. I don't know of anyone who does that. But perhaps there's an opportunity there of like, if I can figure out, they just want to make sure that your database is whatever, SOC 2 compliant. And, if I can figure that out and get whatever this other certification is. Actually, especially in the age of LLMs, all the people currently getting these contracts are all these dinosaurs who are doing things in the old way. If I come in and say, I'm going to build you a Rails app, and I'm going to do it with a super lean team that's going to really heavily lean on LLMs, and like, here is the cookie cutter framework of how we're going to get this done. It'd be like that movie where War Dogs, I think, where it's like the two guys who start doing government contracts they figure out a way to get a bunch of ammo cheaply, and then they start bidding on government contracts.
Is it Lord of War? Software. Is that what you're talking about?
I think it was War Dogs or War Pigs, or it was two guys who did, I don't remember.
I would say there's a reason big companies do that. It's because you need an army of people to fill out all the forms. Like,
or an LLM.
I mean, maybe you could try. You could try. The other thing I would say is we haven't talked about this yet, but we are recording this on the day of the inauguration of the new president, and the government may change drastically. And so I don't know.
Which could be good for me if I'm just getting into this,
or it could be terrible.
For sure.
As far as I understand, today they're putting a hiring freeze, on, and presumably that's bad for spending. I don't know.
I could see it shaking out a whole bunch of different ways. I could
see
be
determined.
Yeah. The Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. I think the goal of that is to like get rid of 75% of government employees.
Right. So I don't know if I would count on government money.
Yes, and I could totally see a future where
it's more
perhaps
privatized.
The 25% of people who are there are like, we're the best 25%. We're the most competent 25% in this department. And like, we know that the solution to this thing is, instead of having a department of people do this, we know there just should be the software thing that does this. So we know the software we need, and this is the software we need.
So,
but I don't know.
I would guess those would go to like 100 plus consulting companies, but 100, But anyway, that's my take on government.
It'd be a tough game to play. Of like, if I'm just
right now is a tricky time to get into government spending.
For sure,
what I'm saying. Yeah.
For sure. Could be a pro, could be a gun. I'm not.
But a lot of big companies operate like governments. So a lot of big companies, as an example, I know a friend of mine started a whole consulting company based on what a large tech company didn't want to do. Like, they didn't have money to hire people to do it, but they were willing to spend, like $2 million on like external contractors doing this thing. And it's like, we don't want this long-term, 10-year employee doing this thing, but sure, we can spend $1 million on you doing it. So
if I could find that sort of opportunity, that'd be
right. So
with one job, I could get to my goal real quick.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I think the main unknown for me there is like, where do I get those jobs? Like this Stack job that I had is a college friend. I think it was like, that's not a repeatable way to get more jobs. I don't know. Like, how do consulting companies? How do dev shops get jobs?
So that's how your network. So you did this one Stack's job. Ask him or her, who else they know, and try to get one of those jobs, and then ask them who they know.
Yeah, like he's part of an incubator in Nebraska, and I think he was saying that the previous dev shop that he had worked with, he had regretted recommending them to several other people because they actually ended up doing a bad job for him. So
that's exactly how.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's an option. I think my biggest unknown is like, where do I get more jobs?
Yeah.
And I think referrals are a great idea. Something else I considered is like, I've heard 2 or 3 times now this story of we hired this dev shop and they're terrible, and then I come in and save the day. At different levels of saving the day. Some,
Sure.
arguably, from some perspectives, I made the day worse, but I like to think I saved the day.
Right.
I can say that. Confidently. Like, I did a much better job than the dev shops did or could have done, I think. So I'm curious if there's like a subreddit of people who are complaining about dev shops not doing a good job, or if there's like, I don't know, do dev shops publish their list of clients somewhere and I can be messaging all of them like, hey, I have already fixed 3 of the applications that like this dev shop did.
Yeah.
Would you
So
like me to fix yours?
sort of, if I were going to go that route, I would publish more. Think about like really long tail content marketing.
Mhm.
So publish a blog post that you hope like 3 people see,
Mm.
and then you can try to make those 3 people see it. So like, this is how we saved this company, $100,000 by doing it this way instead of this way.
Mm.
And then if a friend comes to you with a problem, you can be like, send them this blog post. So like blog posts that you hope like, yeah, a dozen people see, and you get 1 contract out of. I think that is probably the way to go about it. Like randomly posting on Reddit, I think will get you 0 clients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Things I like about that are like, I like that I'm rewarded in a consulting job for getting things done quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I like work that's decoupled from the time that I'm spending in it.
Mm-hmm.
That ended up not quite working out in my favor.
I was going to say that can hurt
but
you or help you. Yeah.
I think I still ended up reasonably okay. Like, I didn't lose money on it.
Sure.
I don't think. Time will tell to see how much money I actually make from it. But I like that about it. I like that it's like, especially in more greenfield things, if I get to make applications with my opinion of the way that applications should be made, and I think that's good. I like the shorter timescales. Yeah, the consulting has a lot of pros. Okay. Second thing I'd like to talk about is get a job as option number 2. I had no idea it would take 6 months to a year to get that.
So that's the big companies.
Okay.
It's anywhere from a week to a year.
Okay. At a smaller company, I could see it happening faster.
The smaller the company, the faster, and the more you know the people, the faster. So if you know someone right now who needs like I know people today who I could probably get work with tomorrow. But if you want a job at Google, it takes 3 to 6 months or more.
Yeah, brutal.
Especially right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Right now is really hard.
That's good to know too, that the market's not very good. So I think perhaps it would make sense to, if I pursue this route, and I like the framing of like, take a month to just kind of incubate on these things. But so after the month, be thinking about what might it look like to get a job at these bigger companies. Are there, can I start that process now? Knowing that that's going to be kind of hard because it's not a good market right now. And then looking for more local companies of like, that seems like a smaller pool to be looking at. I think I already know of 3 or 4 tech-ish companies in Dallas that I could be talking to, and I could see that cycle being much shorter because, especially if it's someone who, if it's a company that wants some aspect of their employee's job to be that they are able to come in person, it's a much smaller pool of people. So I could see that. I could see that working out. Hesitations that I have there are like, I don't know. I would try really hard to, I'd be going into it knowing that there are a lot of things about being an employee that I am going to need to improve quickly. So, that would be challenging, and I would really want to do a good job. And things that I'm not used to, of just like, have meetings and calendars and like the sorts of places where I feel like I'm falling down sometimes. I think my calibration of like moving meetings around, you may have felt it actually with just the interactions that we have of like makers.dev of my flexibility in time. I think like I'm running on a different schedule than I think people who are more used to traditional employment are running on. Which is something I'd love to improve. Like that's something that I consistently feel embarrassed by, that I'd like to be better at. That's a rough spot that could be improved.
It's an interesting way to think about it. Like you, I mean, this is bad for potential employers to hear, maybe, but you could be like, for 2 years I want to have a job just to see what it feels like, and maybe I'll hate it and then leave.
Yeah, like for a potential employer, it's very important to me to be honest. And Sarah actually has hesitation with me recording this in case a potential employer hears it. So I think this has to go through a round of Sarah listening to it before.
I would say, before you say whatever you're going to say, I would say any employer that hears this and doesn't like it shouldn't hire you in the first place.
Yeah, that's kind of my perspective on it. Is like, I really, I think it would be bad for me and bad for my potential employer if I felt like I had to not be honest to get the job. I think that's a recipe for both of us being very unhappy. So that's very important to me, that like I want to be honest all the way through. So yeah, that feels like a really hard pitch if I'm like, I just want to see how much this sucks. But give me a bunch of money while I'm here, and I don't know, maybe after 6 months I'll peace out. Like if I was going to do it, I think I would want to do it like, okay, I'm committing to, I don't know what a reasonable amount of time is, like a year or 2 years. Yeah.
So like 2 years is above the average tenure of like a FANG employee.
Really?
Yeah, it's like 1.6 years or something.
Huh. Yeah. That's very surprising. I didn't know they churned through that quickly.
Yeah. The other thing I'd say is, based on what you said, small companies would love that because they really want like founder mentality kind of people.
Yeah.
Large companies don't care because they just hire you like developers. So maybe mid companies.
Hold on. It takes a year to hire someone, and then they leave after. Yeah. So they're just constantly hiring. It's just a treadmill of people coming in.
Absolutely. Even right now, like Meta's laying off people and hiring a bunch. For sure.
That's absurd.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yes, it is. I would say a year is long because I went through a hiring freeze, but 3 to 6 months, perfectly, reasonable.
That's wild. Okay, noted. That's very interesting. Okay, yeah. So yeah, it would be important to me to be honest, to be like upfront. Like, here's what I think I'm really good at. Here is what I know I'm going to be bad at, and then here's kind of this vague pointing to this pile of stuff. If I think we're both going to be surprised by like the sorts of things that are unpolished in me as a person being an employee, of like, what do you mean I can't just ask for a random day off with 24 hours notice? Like,
so yes to all that, but also there's a way to couch that to employers where it sounds good, and a way where it sounds bad. Make it so it sounds good.
Yes. This is advice Sarah had for me, is like, working with a recruiter was something she recommended. I'd like to talk to you about that. That like, I could probably be giving much more of an unfiltered, like, look, here's where I'm at, and here's the things I know I'm bad at, and then they can help me craft a narrative of finding the more positive light of the way to frame that. Of the strength of that is that I'm very dynamic, and I don't know what else to say there, but yeah, I think I can say confidently that like, there's a company out there that I think I would really enjoy working for.
Yeah.
That I think I could uniquely provide incredible value to, of like having someone with a founder mentality who can come in and get a bunch of stuff done autonomously. And some of it's going to be like the way that I'm interacting, instead of unpolished. What's a better word than that? Like unconventional.
Yeah, sure. Unconventional.
And for that company, that's not going to matter because they need someone unconventional to kind of like mix things up a little bit and actually get the thing done. That's the sort of thing that I think would be a really good fit.
Which touches on something I was going to say about recruiters, which is recruiters recruit for conventional companies generally, because if you get hired through a recruiter, you get hired to a company who is hiring a recruiter, if that makes sense. So it's only the type of companies that hire recruiters will get you hired through a recruiter, which are mostly conventional companies. So if you want any sort of unconventional role, a recruiter is probably a bad fit.
Yeah,
what I'm trying to say. A recruiter is a very conventional way to get a role.
So within get a job, I think I'm segmenting that out into these two categories. The first category is like more conventional, bigger company, probably go through a recruiter, probably have 6 months to a year of what do you do for what were you doing for a year? How many interviews did
I
you
was
have?
consulting. I mean, I had consulting contracts that whole time, and
But like
when it
what
was,
were the interactions you were having
I mean,
during that year
my consulting contracts. Oh, with the company.
with the company? Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
well, it was like okay, so it takes say a month to schedule interviews. Oh, okay, so it takes a month to schedule the recruiter interview. I have that. It takes a month to schedule the next interviews. I have those. Those are over a month. After the month, it said you did really well, but now we have a hiring freeze. It takes a month to schedule the next interviews. Those happen over a month. Something like that. I don't think it was a whole year, but it was maybe 8 months. Yeah, of just those things. Like
That's wild.
big companies
Okay.
take a long time to do anything. Yeah.
I see a lot of advantages to like I think I could more strongly defend the way that I get work done now of like look, I was able to like build this RSA library in like 4 days.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
in a
So,
bigger company
so
that
the,
was
the other thing I'll say is like it's not like the recruiter who was talking to me that whole time was only dealing with me. They were probably dealing with 1,000 other people,
sure,
like
sure.
something like that. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
obviously it takes a long time. They're dealing with
Yeah.
1,000 people, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's and there's things that these huge companies are able to do that you can't do as a
yeah,
smaller person. It's a bigger machine, like it's a cruise ship versus a
yeah,
jet ski or something.
yeah,
There's things the cruise ship can do that the jet ski can't, and vice versa.
yeah.
Yeah, that it's interesting
But
though
but
the
I
scale of it.
think based on everything I know, I think you'd rather be on a jet ski than a cruise ship. That's my
I think
take.
so. I think that'd be more similar. At the same time, I can kind of make an argument for like, well, if the point of this is to kind of learn
Yeah,
to
sure.
develop myself as a person, the maximum learning opportunity would be with one of these bigger companies.
You could still do that. I have learned the most at some small companies, sort of in the mid range, I would
Mm,
say. So I got consulting contracts with people who I know at say 100-person companies. 100-person companies still need a lot of process. So you can still learn a lot of the process type stuff at that size of company, but get hired by say one person.
mhm,
That's the fastest way to get hired is you know the hiring manager, right? And is one person who makes a decision.
mhm,
So I think there's a mid ground also that you could really benefit from, I
mm.
suppose.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just saw the time. We need to wrap this up.
Yeah, we're at a long time.
Another banger of an episode. I think someone messaged me afterwards and was like, "That was great." I was like on this intercontinental flight and
I saw that.
listened to it. And yeah, that was cool. Okay, so we had consulting. We talked about that. Get a
Yeah.
job.
Yep.
Big company versus small company.
Yep.
The last one would be start another SaaS,
Yeah.
and that one is also exciting. I think the downside of that is like that's what I've been trying to do for over a
Yeah.
decade. It's really hard.
I feel like you need a marketing person, and that's what you had in Rootable, and that's what didn't
Yeah,
work. I
yeah.
think your mistake there, if I were to sum it up, is you were trying to do too many things at once.
I think
Consulting
so.
and
There also are some things I can point to of like Laura and my relationship was it came out of trying to build this thing together, and I
yeah.
think there were some things that we were both kind of glossing over of differences in the way that we communicate, and I would be very interested in what it might look like if I was intentionally looking for a co-founder
Right.
and trying to optimize first for is this someone I can really get along with.
Sure.
So like I don't know if I have a friend who I've known for a while who wants to start a company and has the market for this thing, that's something I could potentially see working out. And having gone through this with Laura, I feel like I know I know so much more about like
Yep.
what things that I'd like to handle up front. But yeah, I feel like I know the shape of that of the sort of person Laura is of like she has this audience, she has this great idea for a piece of software to serve the audience. Like that part was perfect for me.
Yeah.
That worked really well. Oh, I feel sad again, kind of that didn't work out, but I think it needed to
I
happen.
mean, if you were different people, you're different people. Like,
Yeah.
right.
If yeah. I did everything I can do. Yeah. So that's one side of it, and then the solo SaaS thing is still something that's so appealing to me because like
Yeah.
all of these problems I had with like problems in communication with the other business person, like if I can just figure out a way to distribute an app, I don't have to worry about any of that. And then like LLMs are so good that,
Yeah.
with marketing, it's so much easier. With developing the thing is so much easier. If I can, if I was going to start something again today, I think I would be primarily concerned with how am I going to find customers for this thing, and you know, do the mom test thing up front before doing any sort of interviews. And like I've built an app that has made $8,000 a month. Like this,
Right.
it's not unfeasible for 20K MRR has been this goal forever. If I could just get there,
Yeah.
like okay, overnight now I've hit this financial goal that I'm trying to get.
So another way to think about this is, I get the feeling, I haven't asked directly, but I get the feeling you have some runway, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
so
Sarah, I'm incredibly fortunate also that Sarah has a full-time job. So and she's able to cover all of our expenses, and
That's
we
awesome.
have a little bit left over.
So instead of 1 month, maybe you take 3. And in 3, you think about SaaS has fundamentally changed because of AI. I hate that it has, but it has. So think about exactly how it's changed. And then without building anything, this is my challenge to you. Without building anything, figure out what you can do because things have changed.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
What's possible now that wasn't possible.
And so take 3 months. I would say you can't do it in 1. Take 3. Talk to people. Figure out what has changed. Maybe that is consulting. Maybe that is starting a SaaS that is AI focused. Maybe that is getting a job. But something has changed in the last 2 years. And then in the next 3 months, you can explore that. Maybe that's interesting. Yeah.
Here's going to be Sarah's counter to that, which is
we need money.
You want to just mess around and lackadaisically think of a new
the way that
all.
I sold my wife on waiting a year to get hired at Google is that the future revenue is way more than this temporary blip in downtime. That's how I would couch it.
I'll see if Sarah would buy that. Yeah. Okay. That's what I would like to do. I think that would be my favorite option. If I was trying to craft my like ideal plan from right now, I think it would be take at least a month to just kind of like let things settle down, let ideas kind of percolate, be thinking about pushing forward next steps on let me start introducing myself to recruiters and just kind of like I'm just curious about this. Let me see what this might look like. Reach out to some of my friends who have these smaller companies and see like this is the kind of work I'd like to do, and just kind of plant some seeds there. And for consulting, be trying to figure out, if a job just kind of lands in my lap, great, I'll do that job. Also be thinking more about like how might I be finding more customers? Is there someone who Cohagen knows who also needs software developed, and is that the way to build that consulting side of it? And then be thinking more about what might it look like to build a business that could scale to 20K MRR that I could totally own. Or what might it look like to find another co-founder where we are on the same page communication-wise quicker, but they're still able to do like to own the non-technical side of things. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, I think so. I think there is for sure a plan. I think you could do multiple of those at once also. Like, you can be having a lot of conversations in the next 1 to 3 months.
Yeah.
And you can have
in each conversation I can be like, look, this is the menu of things I'm considering.
You can have multiple conversations at once. Like you could have like job sort of interviews, knowing those take about 3 months. You could have co-founder sort of interviews, knowing those take about 3 months. Consulting kind of interviews, knowing those take 3 to 6 months, and figure it out later.
You know what I wonder is there's like tech incubators in Dallas. Yep. Like if you were a non-technical co-founder looking for a technical co-founder, where would you go? Is there a microcomp but for the opposite?
There's the Y Combinator co-founder matching thing. Those are interesting. Any of those would be interesting, except I don't have data on this, but I feel like people who find each other through those have a higher failure rate than normal. Just because you're sort of trying to force something. That's my worry.
I think I'd be wanting to find like a friend of a friend or or something like that. Yeah, a stronger connection. Okay. I haven't used Facebook in a long time. Maybe writing a Facebook post would be a good way to push this forward.
I don't know. I think I told you I don't use social media very much right now. And when I go to Facebook, the page that comes up, because it's the last page I visited, was the place where we got our dog from. And so when I go to Facebook now, all I see is puppies, which is fantastic. It's like all these puppies that are available. And I'm like, oh, yeah, get a dog.
The best version of Facebook. That's great.
That's great.
You might have the best social media experience of anyone.
just go to all these puppies and then, close the tab. Yeah,
that's good. Great. Thank you so much for your feedback.
I hope that helps. I don't know if it helped. I rambled for a while, but
I feel it helped. I feel some clarity around it. I think perhaps the hardest next step is going to be getting on the same page with Sarah. Of like, I think what she would like the most is if I just like jumped on. Let's get a recruiter. Let's get this process started.
Right.
To get this job at Google.
I think, I think the main thing is that tech is very nonlinear, and so like a little time now can equal saving 10 years later. Like is that much? Two months now can save 10 years later.
Particularly with all this AI stuff going on, like the world is changing so quickly. We're about to have Tesla bots. Like what
Sure.
kind of ways could I be capitalizing on that? Like the world is going to fundamentally change with and what like a piece of software that will be needed is like a Tesla bot rental platform where people who own Tesla bots rent them out to other people,
right?
Like an Airbnb for Tesla bots.
I think spending a little time now optimizing for later is like 2 or 10x difference. So yeah.
Okay. Well, if anything, I will enjoy this time of just kind of getting to relax. Oh, we're still remodeling our kitchen. That was another thing going on.
Are you building cabinets? You were like
no, I didn't get to build the cabinets. we got IKEA cabinets.
All right.
There have been little things that I've been able to build though in it, and so my dad came over this morning and we were finishing that out. But that's one of the things that's going to be that chapter will be closed at least in this next month of that the kitchen remodel is going to be done. So yeah, and that was just like another nagging thing during this. Oh my gosh! And also, I don't know how this happened, but we ended up with just these massive piles of junk, and we're already renting 2 storage units. This was another thing that happened in
life,
this crazy
man.
month.
Life happens.
Yeah, man, it's just so many things. And Sarah got sick, and Isabella got sick. I miraculously didn't get sick. That would have made it much worse. It was a lot. I feel very grateful to just kind of be chilling out a little bit, and I look forward to what this next chapter has. I think there's a lot of great options. I'm interested to see what reality has planned for this next chapter. It'll be interesting.
Sounds good. Well, we'll check in when you have some update, I guess.
Perfect. Chris, that's all I got.
That's all I got too.
Then I'll see you when I see you.
All right.
Goodbye.